Hi guys and girls, Emma again. Welcome back to what I think is probably the last part 22 of this little traction engine build. Everything was looking pretty good. I've decided not to paint the roof or probably paint any more of it. To be honest, we're going to leave the wheels green with the green stripe to match. Red stripes on here. I had thought to put a red stripe along here, and I might still do that, but that'll be about the extent of it. There's nothing else really to do except make this little pulley that goes on this side. Pretty straightforward. If we have a look in the book on page 76, that shows this pulley here, which is a piece of 1/2 inch brass with a groove in it, which is sort of a bit fanciful, to be honest, and some sort of important dimensions. 17mm long, and it's got a 4mm hole in it, or a hole to match the crankshaft. It's got an M4 grub screw in it and a groove in it, and apart from that, it's pretty straightforward. It's brass. If we look in the teacher notes, there's a picture of the V-grooving tool for the pulley. That's the first job, I think, is to make that up. If we have a look, I found a bit of brass that's about 1/2 inch, 9/16, something like that. That's going to do the job nicely. I found a grub screw and a tap. That's pretty straightforward if we don't lose it. First job though is to make a tool to groove this. So I'm going to set the bench grinder up, and we'll have a bit of a look at it and grind up a tool and make it nice. So I've got a bit of silver, a bit of high-speed steel. It's only pretty tiny. I think it's probably 3/16. It'll do the job. Someone's already kind of done a job on one end, but I don't know what happened there. But this was kicking around. I don't think that was me. High-speed steel's usually got an angle cut on one side, one end, so keep that in mind and use it to your advantage, because we'll need a bit of a bit of rake or a bit of clearance on the bottom. We have a form tool that's sort of, it's not too bad, it's a bit rough. You're going to need a nice stone, and this is a synthetic razor hone from a long time ago, when people used to use, guys used to use flat razors. And it's just the thing for finishing working edges on high-speed steel. It's really just the thing. If you can get one, check out the yard sales and second-hand stores, junk stores, things like that. If you see one, grab one. It doesn't take much to polish that up nice. And we're going to use that tool. This one is a Velvet Edge, finest quality. Some of them are quite collectible, and you see them with all sorts of cool pictures and things on them, but for sharpening, this doesn't matter much what it is. A stone like this is synthetic, and some of them you can clamp them between two blocks of wood to straighten them. Some of them you just need to give them a rub on a bit of sandpaper, but you need to Google that. Won't take much to clean it up. Let's set him up in the lathe and we'll machine this down, we'll put the groove in and clean up the ends a bit, drill a hole in him and genuinely make a pulley. So I put a 4mm drill through there. I machined this down so that it cleans up to about 1/2 inch, and I faced the end of it. I made sure that I've got enough sticking out at the end so that when I part it off, everything works. The next thing is to put a groove in at 11mm from the end. And probably just a flat parting blade groove like the rest is going to be heaps enough to drive this thing. But we've got a tool now. And I've just set that up in the tool holder like that. So that it's nice and square. We're in frame there. Nice and square this way across the centre of the cut. Little square across there. And just on a piece of tool steel, because you'll find that your bolts aren't quite long enough to hold this. When I drop this in, that'll be nice and square then. I need to find a centre height. Trying to find good angles to film this. I've just set that up nice and square on centre height, 11mm from the end to the centre of the tool. It's not going to take a lot of machining to put a groove in there. Job's done. Probably a good idea to check this again with your ruler. We're going to part that off a little bit further along, but before we do that, we probably put a bit of a profile in this end. We could use a form tool or a radius tool. Easiest just to do this by eye. And find a round file the right diameter. Give that a rub. If you're not sure if it's cleaned up or not, you could use a Sharpie or you could glue this up and then give it another rub. And if it all disappears, well then you've probably got a radius. And you want to check the length of the crankshaft before you part this off. It's nice to get something that's going to look pretty flush and sweet. Fraction short won't hurt, fraction long is going to look crap. So that's just a personal thing with me, but I'm going to measure that. We've got about 16mm sticking out. And we could part it off at that. Going most of the way. Let's take that corner off so that it's not sharp. We've got a little pip there. There's a couple of things you could do. You could put it in a collet if you've got one the right size and just machine that off. You can put a little bit of shim around it or a piece of paper around it, hold it back in the vise and clean it up. You could give it a rub with a file and a rub on a piece of emery paper, which is probably going to be as good as anything, and that's what I'm going to do. So there we go. We'll bring this over where we can see it. That fits on there nice. It's just about right on the end there. Fairly pleased with that. It wants a little bit of end shake. Doesn't want to be tight. We'll put it together. And next job is to centre punch it. You put in a V-block to do that, or you could hold it straight in the vise probably. We're just going to give that a tap with a hammer and a centre punch. Like that. Make sure he's in the centre then. That's a smart idea. That's not quite lined up, and I'm just going to adjust that a little bit. what we're looking for is the centre punch mark on top there. I'm going to drill that to match this grub screw, and we'll run that tap through there. Won't take much. Once we've got it started, we can probably just hold it in our fingers and run that through, and that way we're not going to break the tap, I hope. We can give this a bit of a clean up with a file or a piece of emery paper. Little file is probably nice if you've got a nice fine one. Because there will be a burr on top. Absolutely. It's not a bad idea when you're fitting a grub screw to save a little bit of aggravation. Here's a tip. When you're fitting a grub screw, just to save a bit of aggravation, because quite often your tap won't thread all the way down into a hole, is to drill a bit further forward. You don't want to pop out the other side, but go a bit further through, and it's not going to worry anything because it's supported both ends. And if you go a bit further forward, or a bit further past the side of the hole, then you've got enough room to tap and clear the swarf and all that sort of stuff. We're all about not breaking taps here, really. So I don't know why it is that I've never ever got the right Allen key, but time to screw this together. And that's probably really nice. And that's what the pulley looks like. Now, I bought some spring belts from a Mammoth supplier in England. These are pretty cool. If we have a close look, one side's smaller than the other, and they just screw together like that. The secret to this is that it's anti-clockwise thread. I feel like just not telling anyone that and letting them sort that out. If you turn it backwards for a couple of threads, then it'll lock together the right way around nicely. So screw it backwards a couple of times and it'll start, and then you can thread it together. There's your belt. That'll slip over there nicely. And some oil is next. And I reckon that's probably tight enough. We're going to call this engine finished. I'm going to give it just a run here on the bench with the belt off for a start. So there we go. I'm probably going to go out on a... gonna confess up and say this won't be the first time I've steamed this engine. It's had a bit of a run and it's had a bit of a fiddle. There's a few things that needed... some fine tuning. And a few things to learn about this little engine before I really confidently steam it on camera. Not a huge deal. I put the belt on, and surprise, surprise, we only needed one of them, so don't cut up the other one if you buy two. That's heaps long enough there at 12 inches to run this engine, and this will slip a bit on the hills anyway. Probably this could be a fraction shorter, if anything. I think it's quite tight there, but I reckon we could take probably another 3/8 of an inch, 10mm out of there, and still get it on there okay, and still have it drive successfully. This is quite flimsy, so don't unscrew the safety valve holding onto this. You'll bend everything. We need a spanner. We need a funnel. We need some gloves, is a good idea. Take the burner out first, eh? I'm gonna say this glove thing. I haven't really put a disclaimer on this engine, and there's a lot of dangerous stuff you've done so far, if you've built one. And you've got to the point that you've got this pretty little traction engine sitting on the bench or on the table or on the floor or whatever, and you're going to fire it up. Now, this is a crazy project that no one else in your street's done or even thought of doing or even dreamt that they would be able to do. And you've actually got it going, which is amazing. You know crap, and you're an expert at this. Really impressed if you have got to that stage. However, this thing dribbles and spurts hot water, like really hot water. I got burns all over me. And it's a pressure vessel. They do explode. Even little ones like this, it will explode if you're not careful. It's got a safety valve for a reason. It's got a little metho burner. We're starting with a funnel and some hot water. We'll take the burner out first so the burner doesn't fill up with water when you fill it up and it overfills, because this boiler doesn't take a lot of water. And it runs straight down there on the burner tray. Everything on this gets hot, so if you value your fingers at all, I probably have fairly cast iron fingertips. But you're going to get hot water everywhere, no matter what. It's no matter how far careful you are, how clumsy you are. Fiddling with this thing, you're going to get hot water everywhere. You'll get used to this, but probably if you filled it up so that it pops over the top here, you've got it too full. We'll screw this in with a fibre washer, nice and neat and tight. It doesn't need to be tight, but it needs to be firm and it doesn't want to leak. I've discovered that this engine will run with this undone half a turn. It's certainly got enough steam for that. A bit wet, but it will run. Don't ask how I know that. So, we've got water here everywhere. Same deal with the burner, and it's designed to run spirits, or we call it methylated spirits or metho here in Australia. White spirit is probably what they call it in other parts of the world. Burner doesn't hold a lot, but it'll run out of water before the burner's finished. You also want plenty of clean rag if you're messing around with this. A little bit at a time until it overflows. In fact, overflowing is probably too full. Look, I don't get a mess everywhere. This fire is not going to hurt anything, but you're going to notice it. And it's probably not going to be the best thing on your Laminex kitchen bench top or the lino in the kitchen or the lounge room carpet. I don't think it'll leave a mark, but we want to clean that up and wait for everything to evaporate off the bench and everything. Be a bit patient with that. And light it up. Be a bit careful because you can't always see. It's probably better with the light out. You can't always see where the flames are coming out. And that's sort of the look we want. We'll put this in here nicely. And don't be too impatient, we'll just sit here and wait. In the meantime, we can flip this back and that'll sit there on the burner nicely and won't bend up or dent or touch anything. We want to run a bit of oil around here. A bit down the cylinder, the crank pin. Especially if it's the first time it's running. This has done probably an hour's work. It's ticked over nicely, 3 or 4 or 5 steamings. No worries at all. So it's kind of getting to the point that it's running nicely. Everything turns. I did do a little bit of fine tuning on this engine, and we'll talk about that while we're getting steam up. First thing I did was I gave these a little bit more room on the end float on the wheels so that there was no friction here. You can see that it's not a lot, but I did give that a little bit there. Also a bit here, more than I expected that it would need, because when this gets hot and expands, this was getting pretty tight and jamming up. What else I do? I found a burr on this hole that I never cleaned off after I drilled through. There was a slight burr on the end of it, and I ended up lapping that off nicely just on a stone. That's probably about all I did do to really get it performing the way that I thought that it needed to. This is going to be 4 or 5 minutes, and we can mess around with it all we like. You can flip the flywheel, you can push it backwards and forwards, you can do all those sort of things. What you're going to find is not really going to hasten the process. It's just going to put water everywhere, and your burn time or your run time is going to be a bit less because the boiler is going to be that little bit less full when you actually get steam up. So just be patient, even walk away, because watch pot and all that stuff. But this is you're going to hear this like a kettle. You're going to hear this start to boil a bit before it really gets there. And once it starts to bubble, it's only a minute away, something like that, from being hot enough to run. So we can put this over here, bearing in mind that when you come back to it, it's going to be so hot you're not going to be able to touch it. And give it a minute and wait. The wheels are getting pretty hot here. Smoke box is getting pretty hot. I noticed that this stainless steel is starting to change colour. Mostly it's burnt oil, but a lot of that will polish off. But everything's sort of starting to get pretty warm. It needs a polish after this run. So we can see it's starting to prime there now, which means the boiler was probably a bit full. There's hot puddles of water here everywhere. Try not to get your gloves too wet, because they will burn you. So that's running pretty sweet. It really is. It's got a bit of a knock there somewhere. Probably because this thing has to be loose when it's cold to actually run. And that's just part of the fun. It's a toy, really. You're not going to ever get that out of it, I don't believe. you can be careful, and I've ended up loosening this up quite a lot to get it to even think about running. So that's the main reason all through this build I've been a little bit lax about tolerances, because I know that these little engines require a little bit of gaps and latitude to actually run nicely and behave properly. This is running pretty nice. With a load, it's sort of behaving pretty well. And the run typically is about 15-20 minutes, and each run it gets a little bit better. Just bear in mind that this canopy is quite a lot of weight. And it's also made of copper, so it's pretty hot. And it's almost too hot to touch there. But it doesn't rattle any. And a load on that pulley there, and it's running pretty well. Next run I'm going to set it up over on the coffee table, and we're going to run around in circles a few times and see if I can get some footage, and I'll include that in this video. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thanks heaps for watching. Really appreciate all everyone's done to stick by me and make this possible. It's an amazing thing that I can build things like this and people actually watch them on YouTube. But we're going to call this build finished and complete. Stand by for what I'm going to call Season 2 on my Patreon projects. It's a pretty cool project. The video will be up in the next few weeks, I hope. Probably it's going to be next week. But I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to get this finished and put it on the shelf. And it'll get a run occasionally. But it is, yeah, it's a fairly messy little toy. As you can see, I only use genuine vintage Bahco spanners for working on these sort of things. That's important. Keith Appleton's words and music there, but that's an important thing to have. This is running out of water. It's starting to slow down. It's been running for probably 20 minutes, something like that, nicely there. It's fairly noisy. You want a door open because this little burner is pretty fumey. It's not particularly efficient. The exhaust exhausting up the chimney. I would say there's a fair bit of condensate in the bottom here, although this chimney gets pretty hot, so maybe not. We'll tip it out and find out. I personally, after finishing a run, would let this engine or any other little engine like this run out of water, because you're not going to melt the boiler, this boiler that you've made with this little burner, even if it gets, I mean, it's not going to get hot enough to do that. So generally this is going to run out of water before that boiler's finished, and there's probably still a bit of fire in the burner. You don't really want to leave water in the boiler, and draining any excess water out of this boiler is going to be almost impossible. So there we are, we're out of water. Burner's still going strong. We'll blow that out. Easy as that. And you'll find that the 15-20 seconds, there's not enough energy in that boiler to do anything after that boiler goes out. So it's pretty safe, really. Just don't burn your fingers. So really the only jobs before you put it away is to give it a good wipe down with a rag after it cools. Give the brass a bit of a polish. Nice soft cloth. Probably some if you're really feeling enthusiastic, some cream polish. I'm not sure I'd go that far every run, but it wants to clean every now and again. Bit of oil around everything. Turn him upside down and we'll see how much condensate we get out of the chimney. And put it all together and put it on the shelf. So thanks for watching. Thanks for everything you've done. If you're watching this on Patreon, really appreciate that. And big thanks if you're watching this on YouTube for following along. And anyone who's building one of these, that's an awesome thing. And I really, really respect that. So time to clean up and get on with the next project. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that stuff. Be kind to each other. I mean that, be kind to me. And there's going to be more soon.